Teddy, are you ready? We look at the camera. Remember? There it is. Good boy. Well, welcome to Pet Talk with Anna and Teddy. Teddy, would you like to say something? Good boy. Well done. Very good. And that way we can welcome our guest. You're looking at the camera because we need to welcome our guest. And our guest today is the wonderful Sian Ryan, who runs Developing Dogs. And we've had the pleasure, a great pleasure, of being in one of her parkour workshops. So welcome, Sian.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me.
The first time I ever saw you was on the BBC series, Me and My Dog. And whilst that series was running, I got so excited because the opportunity came up to be on a parkour workshop with you. So then that was it. Teddy and I were we were hooked. I think what I loved about that series was the way in which it was really about developing a bond between a dog and a human being. And I think I'm just going to let you talk a little bit about that wonderful process that happens.
I mean, what you loved about the program is exactly what I loved about it as well. And you know, it's one of the reasons that I got involved with it was because we were really keen to demonstrate that dogs and people can develop and grow an understanding of, between each other or of each other. And so sort of one of the things that we'll always be trying to do is to help people understand their dogs, which then helps the dogs understand their people, and that it should be a mutually beneficial relationship. So, you know, my dogs, who you may hear from at some point, they are in the room with me, and they will no doubt feel the need to participate at some point. But, you know, my dogs provide me with joy and affection and entertainment and exercise, and sort of also, you know, at times stress and upset and anxiety and everything else. But I want to make sure that I provide the things that they need too. So I give them opportunities to be dogs, opportunities to do the things that bring them joy and excitement and entertainment and everything else. So I'm very much about trying to make sure that both sides of the partnership get what they need out of the relationship, and what they want from the relationship, and that it is a positive one for both of us, not just it's not just the dogs meeting our needs, but we make sure that we meet and understand their needs too.
What I loved about doing the parkour workshop with you as well was that I felt that doing things like that with Teddy actually improved his confidence as well, because we think of dogs as being, you know, naturally very athletic. We think of them as being able to do things that we can't do, and we don't always appreciate how small things can throw them. And you know, I can remember when Teddy was in his first year, just seeing a bag of rubbish in the street, he would completely flip and, you know, start barking at it. And to me, it's a bag of rubbish. To him, it's something completely different. Oh, reflections. Seeing his reflection in black cars were the stain of my life in about the first 8 months, because he just couldn't handle it. And we forget that they don't experience the world as we do. And that's what I loved about the parkour, because it made me more aware of how he perceives things. But also, I think because of that, it helped me help him and make him more confident. What would you, I think you understand what I'm saying, don't you?
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I love parkour, not because I think that all our dogs should be doing backflips off buildings and things like that, but because the simple process of helping our dogs learn that it's fun to engage with us, it's fun to do stuff with us outside, that different surfaces, different objects, etc., have different ways that we can interact with them, and that will always be a positive experience. Learning to do things slowly, because it's actually easier to do things fast. We rush to do something that we're unsure about, to get it over with, whereas if we learn to very slowly explore stuff, that's a confidence thing, not we're not rushing to get away from stuff. And it's all about just working together, working at the dog's pace, and exactly as you said, wanting to see the world the way that they see it and help them learn that it's not a scary place, or it's, this stuff is good, this stuff is fun. I think in an ideal world, every puppy would be bred from confident, happy, healthy parents. They would have appropriate interactions and stimulation by the breeder, so that they grew up to be confident, happy, healthy puppies who did approach life with an air of that confidence of, I've got this, I can handle this, that's not going to faze me. But unfortunately, I would say those sorts of puppies are in the minority, and the majority of puppies aren't bred from healthy, happy parents with the appropriate levels of stimulation. So when puppies turn up in family homes, quite often they are ill-equipped to be a family pet, because they haven't had they haven't got the necessary early nurture or the genetic components to sort of do that. So what we have to do is find ways to help them live in an increasingly busy and stressful human world, and also try and find ways to enable the people that we work with to understand their dogs better, so that they can then know how to develop them appropriately and how to focus on the things that their puppies need in order to become kind of well-rounded adult dogs. And so we don't do parkour in puppy classes, but we do kind of confidence courses where we have low level exposure to different surfaces and different objects and walking over things and that kind of stuff. So it's that first step. And then with the parkour stuff, the parkour gives a dog a way of exploring something it's unsure of. So if you have been, you've taught your dog to put two paws on something, and you've taught it in a nice familiar place, and you've gone at the dog's pace, and you've reinforced their choices to interact, and eventually got to the point where you put two paws on something. When you get to the point that you can then put that on cue, so you can ask the dog, would you like to put your paws on now, two paws or whatever your cue is going to be. And you can generalize that then not just to the initial object that you started with, but to other objects. You then, in an unfamiliar place, if your dog is showing signs of, oh my God, you're expecting me to walk across that bridge and I can't possibly put my paws onto that wooden, the first step of that wooden bridge because I can see through it and stuff. You can just ask them, okay, that's fine, we don't have to walk across it, but why don't you just put your paws on? And once the dog does a couple of things of, oh, I've put my paws on and I've got a reward for that, and I've come off again and I put my paws on again, and suddenly they've got more confidence about the situation. They have learned that little bit of the environment isn't so scary. And quite often you'll find that they'll then be happy to go, okay, I'll go up and I'll put two paws on the next one, and I'll bring my back feet up behind me. And suddenly you've got a way of walking, across the surface, across a thing that they wouldn't do before. And instead of you sort of using food and trying to lure them across, the dog has chosen to do it and been rewarded for doing it. And so, it helps. I have dogs who got spooked in certain areas and wouldn't walk through those areas again. Did some parkour stuff with them, suggested they might want to do some of those parkour behaviors around the edge of that area. And within a few minutes, they were happy to walk through the whole thing. So it really is such a kind of, a component of enabling our dogs and helping our dogs become more comfortable and confident. And it's that whole thing you say about just learning to read them, to understand and respect what they're saying, and give them a way of doing what we're asking them to do that isn't stressful or isn't scary for them.
I think what surprised me was, and thankfully I never had this issue with Teddy, but how important or how sensitive dogs are to the surfaces under their paws. And so when we started going to workshops like yours, and they were being asked to stand on different textured surfaces, that was a real surprise to me. I didn't think about it, and yet, of course, their paws are very sensitive. So there are going to be things that they're going to say, ooh, what is that underneath my paw? It's like if somebody was to just blindfold us and stick our hands into a gooey substance, we'd be going, what is that? Out of there now. So that was one thing. The other thing, and this is a Teddy thing, is you were talking about going across a bridge, and that reminded me of those bridges where it's wooden and slatted and you can see. Oh, he hates those. He hates those. And we had an issue last year going to Canberra Sands, where there was one of those walkways with stairs going down. And he's never been a fan of stairs, particularly what he would call funny stairs, especially going downstairs. And to try to get him to go down, it took another dog prancing across confidently and going down the stairs. And he went, I've got this, I can do this. And off he went. But it was quite funny to watch, actually, the effect that dog had on him. But there was no way he was not moving for love nor money.
So that's a really lovely example of social learning and how confidence from one dog can help another dog. And I have a similar thing with Buzz and Woody, my two. Woody is the reason I use the bridge example is because Woody is a dog who is very scared and suspicious of those kinds of bridges, the wooden foot bridges with the slats in and things. So various things I did that have helped that. One, I was lucky enough to be able to build something out of wooden pallets in my field that we can practice on, and so he will walk. We got to the point, 2 paws on, etc., walking across pallets when they are on the ground, gradually building up, so we can do that. But the other thing is exactly what you said. It's if Buzz does it first, then Woody will go, oh, okay, so he can do it, that means I can do it. And that social learning element, that demonstrator, where another dog just goes, yeah, it's fine. And Teddy can see, oh, well, the ground didn't swallow up and eat him, so there can't be any monsters under that bridge. I can do it. Yes, it can have a huge and beneficial impact, which isn't to suggest that everybody with a scared dog goes out and gets another dog, because that is not it's not the sort of the immediate solution to that problem. But
no, because work the other way around too, because fear can as well. So you could do dogs with the same problem. So no, this is not what we're talking about. It was simple things like, the tire exercise of getting them to put 2 paws on the tire. And again, it surprised me because he's a dog that does agility. He's fairly confident about lots of things, but ask him to get into the middle of the tire. And he looked at me and he basically said, are you kidding? Why? Why would I do this? But we did, he did do it, and he did it very well. And then he never questioned it again. So that's always a reminder of how they see things differently to us. And we must never take for granted that they're going to know exactly what we're asking them to do.
And the things that we think are similar, so that are very different for them. So Woody, the little ginger lurcher that I have, will every day in the summer and most days in the winter run into the field and go and run into one of the ponds and either stand or lie down in the ponds. And but you ask him to get into a paddling pool and it's like the world has ended. So one summer I put a doggy paddling pool up in the garden, and he was like, absolutely no way, that alien plastic thing that you have put up is not the same as my lovely muddy pond out in the field, and I don't want to go near it. And you know, we did everything. I had it without water in it to start off with, and he was a little bit wary of it, but it wasn't that he was scared of it. He just was like, no, I'm not interested in that. And even when we put water in it, the most they did was drink out of it. So he was quite happy at that point. You know, he would walk in and out of sided buckets and things like that. It wasn't the fact he didn't want to step into it. It was just that water filled thing did not appeal as I will cool down in this, in the same way that the pond out there did. Whereas to us, it's like, but I've just given you an opportunity to go and lie in some water. Wouldn't you want to do that? No, thanks. Not interested. I'll just drink out of it instead. So yes, it became the world's most expensive water bowl.
But it's not natural, is it? You know, a pond is something that they can wade into, and it smells, you know, the smell's going to be different from, you know, our water. It's just, it's a whole different scenario.
Yeah.
You don't climb into it. And I had the same, we have a paddling pool, which Teddy has had since before, excuse me, since before he was 1. And the way he got interested, because he's not terribly ball oriented. So throwing a ball into it, it worked a little bit, but what really got him going was when I went into it. So I went into it, then yes, it was worth exploring. And to this day, he loves his paddling pool, but he's not a dog that will go into it and lie. What he loves is when he comes in from a walk and he's hot, he goes straight to it, gets in, just stands there. What he likes is for me to splash the water on his belly and his thighs, and then he comes out of it as happy as could be. That's what the paddling pool is for. And this summer, I noticed that on the hot days that we had, he actually was asking to be let into the paddling pool. But one of his friends came and stayed with us for a couple of nights. And this friend adores swimming. Teddy's not a big water dog. I discovered last year again that he is a really good swimmer, only because I decided I'd go into the lake and swim with him. And then it was a case of, and thank you, by the way, because that was your TV program that inspired me to do this. So off we went for a swim, but left to his own devices, he's just not interested. His friend, on the other hand, adores water. Would he go into the paddling pool?
Yeah.
It's just, they just see things differently. This is
Absolutely.
not, you know, Diggy looked at me as if to say, come on, does that look like a lake to you? It's really not.
Yes. Buzzley, can you get me a ball? It's all right. My two have just come to say hello. So this is Woody.
Oh, Woody.
Dink. Say hello. Hello. And Buzz, I've just sent off to find a toy of some sort, because he's trying to tell me that it's tea time, which is nowhere near yet.
Oh, well.
They've here we go. They're sort of both. My husband and I are both on a call at the moment, so they've decided that I think Paddy must have done something to start preparing their food, so they come to tell me to finish it off. But you know.
Oh.
The other thing, just we were talking about how dogs see things differently in their surfaces and paws and things like that. You know, obviously the sort of they're not wearing shoes, so when they walk on things, they feel things in the same way that we would do if we're barefoot. And I wonder about things like the plastic of the paddling pool feels very different. They don't normally walk on something like that. So again, if you want to get your dog perhaps more interested in the paddling pool, having it deflated and letting them walk across it a few times and making sure that they're comfortable with how it feels under their feet can be just as much a part of introducing them. And then obviously little bits of water, getting them comfortable with stepping into it so that they're not just wading in, but they know the water is going to hit their paw or hit their wrist or sort of go up from there. Yes, just because they love water in one form doesn't mean that they will in a different shape.
And I guess really what we're saying is people need to be patient and understanding, because very often what I see is people getting impatient with their dogs because, or thinking that they are in some way less intelligent because they're not doing what's expected of them. And, you know, the poor dog can't speak and can't say, well, actually, this is really uncomfortable, or I'm scared, or that, you know, that doesn't look right to me. But the benefit of having that patience and that understanding is the trust that builds. And I'm just going to tell you a couple of little examples where this has really paid off. And these are now treasured memories. And so the first one was, we were in Cornwall on holiday, and it was just me and Teddy. And we decided to go for a walk, or I decided we'd go for a walk. And it was following a river, but the land was climbing so that it became quite steep. But as it was also climbing, so was the path narrowing considerably, so that I was beginning to become a little bit nervous. And it was autumn, so it was wet, muddy, and there were now leaves making it more precarious. And I was in a little bit of a dilemma, because I thought, surely this isn't going to go on for too much longer. We'll come out, you know, the other side of this and everything will be fine. But on the other hand, Teddy at that point would have been maybe 3.5, and he's a lively cockapoo, you know, who likes to follow his nose. So I was nervous of him, you know, falling if he slipped or something. So I had him on the lead. On the other hand, there was the other possibility that he would take off and that I would fall. So I was quite nervous about this situation. But what was interesting is I thought, okay, so we'll carry on for a little bit, and if it doesn't change, then I'll turn back. His reaction was so calm. I put him on the lead and I said to him, careful, Teddy, we need to be careful here. He understood. There was something, he became a completely different dog, not afraid or nervous or anything like that, but he was taking the situation seriously. And I have to say, we went on for a little bit, and then I thought, no, this isn't changing. We're going back. He picked out a better path for us. So initially, you know, I was the one who was saying, okay, we need to be careful here. But he took it one step further and he went, okay, I know what we need to do. We need to get out of this. I'm going to follow my nose and lead you out of it. So we were working together. It was just, I will remember that always, because it was the first time that I really felt that we were completely connected, because we were working together for a goal that he understood as much as I did. So that was the first time. The second time, again, I misjudged things slightly. We were in South Devon, again on holiday, and we were crossing a beach that we cross every day to get to some walks on the cliff. What I hadn't appreciated was that on the far side of the beach, the tide was in closer than I realized. And what I thought were just a few small rocks, we found ourselves having to climb big boulder type things. And Teddy was absolutely brilliant. And when he got stuck, because the boulder was too big for him to climb, he just stopped and waited for me to be able to to get to the other side and reach for him and grab him and bring him down. We were working together. We were a proper little team. We made it through. And I thought about your program again. I thought, wow, that's exactly what I dreamt of when I saw that. And here we were, for real, needing to work together. And there just is no better feeling than that with your dog.
I think, you know, obviously that sort of he had the skills to do that because you taught him to be confident around being able to move his body and all that, and also confident with being lifted by you. But that thing of, you know, being sort of aware of each other. I have a similar example with, well, slightly with Buzz. We climbed up Ben Nevis a couple of years ago together with some other friends and their dogs. And Buzz is a English Bull Terrier Whippet Cross. He is inexhaustible. He will just go all day, and he is an extremely happy dog, but he's a dog that had sort of quite a rough start. He had 9 homes, and so there's an element always of slight anxiety underneath, in that he wants to make sure that you love him. You know, he meets a new person. Are you going to love me? Do you love me? Are you going to be nice to me, kind of thing. So, but he's quite bouncy, he's quite energetic, and he certainly propelled me up Ben Nevis. There were times where because he was attached by a waist belt with a Canicross harness on, he was but there were times when there were some quite big steps and boulders and things, and he definitely assisted me. But I wasn't very well about halfway up, and I made the rest of my group go on. I was feeling very faint and very lightheaded, and basically the food that I'd eaten hadn't yet given me any energy, and I was just a bit rough. So I was like, I just need to go at my pace. So they went on, and I, for about probably an hour, was just literally doing 10-15 steps and then sitting down on the sort of, at this point it was all boulders, it's a boulder path, and then I would be sitting down, you know, 10 or 15 steps, sitting, waiting, getting my breath back, waiting until I felt like I had the energy to do the next thing. And so when I stopped, he would just settle next to me. He'd wag his tail at people who said hello to him on the way past and things like that. And then when I was ready to move on, he would move on with me. And it was just, if it wasn't for him, I'd never have made it to the top. I caught up my friends because they'd kind of steamed on ahead, and then they'd got held up at the summit. So I got to the summit just as they were coming down. So one of them came with me to get to the very top bit, and then we came down together. But so he really was that sort of, he gave me companionship, as you know. I wouldn't have wanted to be on my own, but he was there when I needed him. He was there for a cuddle. He was there to say, yes, come on, mum, we can do this. But whenever I needed to stop, he would stop. When I moved on, he would move on. And it was just, he was an absolute superstar. You know, he did also want to pull me the entire way back down Ben Nevis, which is not so much fun when you're trying to kind of, you know, take big steps down big rocks, and he's just like a little mountain goat going, yes, we can do this, come on. But yeah, he was an absolute little star, and it was just, yeah, one of the best experiences with a dog. And as you say, that whole thing of we're doing this together, he didn't know why we were doing it. As far as he was concerned, he was just out for the day with his friends, and you know, it was all good, and he was having a great time. But he was a real star.
It's so precious, those moments. There's just nothing like them. And just on an everyday level, one thing that, you know, I remember with Teddy, he would have been about 9 months old, and in his exuberance, I fell as I was going upstairs, because he was this lively puppy who was still not very good at walking on the lead and everything else. And the contrast to what happens now, if we're anywhere where there are stairs and we're walking down the stairs, where I say to him, okay, you need to slow down now. And he absolutely walks in pace with me down the stairs. And it's almost, occasionally he looks back and he checks on me, particularly if they're precarious steps. You know, sometimes when we're out and about and in nature, we find these steps that are a little bit rough or a little bit big, and he always checks on me. And it's just such an amazing thing. So to sum up, what would you say to people about patience, or how could people help their dogs to develop that ability to be connected and understanding of what's happening to them.
I think the thing to realize is that for dogs who are bred as pet dogs, most of them want that connection with humans. They have been, you know, we've selected over generations for dogs that pay attention to us and want to work with us. So for most dogs, that is what they want to do. From our part, we need to make it easy for them to do that, and we need to encourage that. So it's about understanding them. It's about learning to read the times when they say, I'm not comfortable, I'm not happy, or I'm super excited and this is too exciting for me, because that's just as much of an issue. And it's about taking a step back and realizing that in those first few months and you know, year or so, what you want to do with your puppy may have to be slightly put to one side whilst the puppy learns how to be a dog in your world. So, you know, you may have visions that what you want to do is take your dog into, I don't know, dog-friendly festivals, for example. But your puppy at 6 months old isn't ready to cope with all the excitement of something like that. So you start off and you introduce them to something that approximates that, and you gradually build up. It's like, if you want a dog that will come to the pub and you know, settle under the table with you, brilliant. But the puppy isn't going to be able to do that from day one. So you need to make sure that you do things in stages, and you go for a quiet drink, a short drink at, you know, time when the pub is almost empty, building up to the puppy being comfortable to go there when there's live music playing and the place is full. You know, there's a big difference for your puppy. So it's about trying to teach your puppy the things they need to know to be the dog that you want to have, and being respectful that sometimes, you know, the puppy that you've bought isn't going to grow up into the dog that you had envisaged, because for whatever reason, genetically, doesn't have what it needs to sort of do that, or its interests are so strong in a different way. You know, you've bought a collie that has really, really strong herding instincts, and you live in somewhere where there are cyclists and joggers, and all the dog wants to do is herd them and make them stand still. You know, there will be clashes. So sometimes it's about accepting the dog that you have and learning to find things that you can do together that you will both enjoy, even if they weren't the things that you initially envisaged. I think, you know, remembering that our dogs are living, breathing, sentient beings with feelings and emotions and some sort of key behaviors that make them dogs, and that we as humans need to find a way to work with that rather than against it, because we in theory are the more intelligent, sensitive one, and we need to be their advocate and their sort of the person that says, okay, I've got this. We can work together to enable this by working with the dog.
Yes, and you know, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about how we absolutely need to give them the grace to be who they are. And you know, I've come to the conclusion that the day will never come when Teddy can lie under a table in a pub. He still regards it. He's about to turn 6 on Sunday. He still regards it as a place where it's for scavenging for anything that's on the floor. It's for socializing. It's not for sitting quietly. And so we've come to an understanding, and the understanding is that he's happy to sit on my lap because he's got a good view of everything. And so I bring an array of things to entertain him, and then when I finish eating, he sits on my lap because then he's got a good overview of everything. We've come to an arrangement, but to think he's ever going to sit under a table, I I don't know, I would be concerned for him, you know, that he wasn't well. It's just not who he is. And so I work with him. If I'm going to go out, then I'm going to make sure that he's got a really lovely chew that he can enjoy for a long time. I time it so that I give it to him when the food arrives. Before that, I have a little array of small tricks that we can quietly do to keep him entertained. And then I can eat and be happy, and then he can sit on my lap and we can both be happy. But that's something that we've worked through. And that's just it, isn't it? We have to know who our dog is and give them the grace to be themselves.
And yeah, there's always sort of things that we can do and to recognize, say, the individual nature of the dog. And there are some things that we can sort of teach them, and there are other things which we can change, we can modify, but ultimately to do that requires a really intense period and an intense training, and potentially isn't always going to be successful. So with something like with Teddy's under the table behavior in the pub, you guys have something that makes you happy to do that. Another owner may say, actually, I really need him just to learn how to be bored under the table. And so they'll work on it in a different way, and they'll teach him to settle in the living room, and then they'll teach him to settle on the drive, and then they'll build up to it. So it's a different thing. I would like mine both to be quiet under the table. Woody is much more successful at just crashing out. Buzz is kind of, he does go under the table, and he comes to the pub, or not so much in the last 18 months, but he is a good pub dog these days. But I used to do exactly the same as you. I would take chews to keep him occupied, so that he wasn't relying on me to constantly being interacting with him, but that he was learning, okay, when we go to the pub, this is what happens. I lie down, I get something, and when I finished it, I might get a quick walk around, and then I come down and I get something else. Build up from there. But yes, if either of them were dogs that would sit comfortably on my lap, I might be more inclined to adopt that as a strategy.
If I had a golden retriever, this would not work. But then if I had a golden retriever, the likelihood of them being calm under the table might be increased.
Oh, I don't know. I've met plenty of bonkers Goldens. So there's excited, but there's impulsive dogs in every breed. So there's more variation within a breed than there is between breeds.
I was just thinking of our two Goldie friends who just are very happy to just lie, on the floor when we've been to pubs together. But yes, you're absolutely right. It's also the personality of the individual dog and the age.
And our personality as well, because what we want from the dog and how we respond to certain behaviors will always influence which bits comes out as well. So I have two dogs that follow me upstairs every time I go to the loo, because when they sort of first did it, I would come out of the loo and find them there and make a big fuss of them for being there. So now they can be fast asleep or doing something else. I go upstairs to the loo and they will both run up to the top of the stairs and wait for me, because they've always been reinforced for doing so. And so I've created that. If I was prepared to ignore them, they'd have given up on the running up the stairs behavior because they didn't get anything out of it. So yeah, we have the dogs that our personality also brings in. So because I find it hard to completely ignore them, I do, when I'm working and stuff, they will lie and settle and not be bothered. But I am also one that if they come over and say hello, I will drop a hand down, give them a quick stroke, and then tell them, okay, finish now, we're not working it, we're working. But
exactly.
Yeah.
And I always say you have to pick your battles, and two dogs following you up the stairs when you need to go to the toilet, it's not a big deal. No. you know, it's much more important that, you know, they're able to do other things. Teddy wanting to be on my lap so he has a great view when he's in the pub, fine. That's not an issue for me. That's quite understandable. He fits on my lap. It's fine. It's we have to choose what it is we need to work on. I remember when he was a puppy, and I had a list of behaviors that used to worry me, and it was all these things that needed to be worked on. That was urgent because, you know, it's biting, it's all the puppy stuff. You still need that patience, but then afterwards, and I used to feel like, you know, I'd lie in bed, you know, thinking, dreaming up games that we could play to help him with any of those behaviors. And then I started to notice that the list was getting shorter, and that it was easier. Took a year, but you know, it got easier. And I thought 18 months was the magic number, where suddenly it just became. And then that you have something else. You have this dog around the age of 3 who is completely embedded into the routine and reads the context of all of your daily situations. And now it seems like their understanding of English is well beyond anything you expect.
I suspect it's more about your body language and previous experience of that context or something similar. But yes, the work that you put in those first 6 months, 1 year, 18 months pays off for the dog that they become. And as I said, you know, at the start, we can't change genetic predispositions. If a dog is genetically predisposed to be fearful or whatever, then in the right stroke wrong circumstances, those things will switch on and that will happen. But we can provide a buffer, and we can teach them behaviors that we want them to do. We can show them how to be more confident and make those choices more sort of rewarding for them. And that's sort of where we go. But what you reinforce when they are 8 weeks old and 12 weeks old will form the foundation of the dog that you have when they're 8 years old. You know, there is that sort of, so if you encourage them to get on the sofa when they're a teeny tiny puppy and curl up on your lap, and suddenly you realize that actually what you've got is a German Shepherd who now thinks they're a lap dog, well, you can't then get cross with the dog for not staying on the floor now that it's a fully grown dog, when you encouraged it when it was a puppy. So it's those sorts of things. It's always trying to think through, if I allow and encourage this behavior now, what's going to happen in the future? And making sure that that consistency is there. So if you don't want your dog on the sofa, don't have them on your lap when they're a puppy. Get down on the floor and always cuddle them down on the floor, always sit next to their bed with them, those kinds of things, because it's not fair then to say, oh no, now you're too big. Or if you don't want your dog on the sofa when they're wet and muddy, teach them to like being toweled off so that you can stop them from coming inside wet and muddy and immediately getting on the sofa again, because they don't know that they're wet and muddy. Or, you know, there are things that we can do. We can teach them you're only allowed on the sofa when there's a throw on there or something like that. But there has to be clear understanding for them, clear rules, clear contexts that allow them to behave in the way that we want them to behave.
Developing dogs. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we have 20 acres just outside Ely in Cambridgeshire. We have 7 acres, which is a dedicated private dog walking field. So you can hire that space, drive yourself in through the automatic gates, let your dogs out, go for a lovely walk, put them back in the car, drive out again. So you never share that space with anyone. You don't have to need leads, etc. We have 3 very luxurious, very private holiday cottages. So they're completely dog friendly. We don't charge for dogs. We provide towels and throws for sofas. They can sleep on the beds using the throws, etc. And they have amazingly comfortable beds for humans, a hot tub for the humans, really nice sofas, really nice kitchens, etc. Just really sort of well done, with their own private 6-foot fenced gardens, quite large gardens, and then use of another set of private dog walking fields. So you come on holiday, and part of it, you look in the calendar and you say, right, I'm going to walk my dog at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you block out that time, and then you can go back in later in the day. So again, if you have dogs that don't like other dogs, you don't have to see or meet other dogs whilst you're here. And then we have online classes, which obviously we have expanded and developed over the last 18 months whilst the coronavirus pandemic's been going on. So we have a monthly membership where we offer a series of online classes, doing everything from indoor parkour, scent work, gun dogs, challenge and activities classes. I think this evening's class that Louise is doing, they're going to be solving a crossword with their dogs and doing activities based around that. And then we have our in-person classes and workshops. And I left those to last because at the time of recording, we are just coming out of, hopefully, the end of the pandemic. But in the last 18 months, those have been very restricted. So at the moment, we're offering in-person puppy classes and various things like man trailing, gun dogs, etc. workshops at weekends. We will go back to our full-blown program of everything from puppies upwards, and things offering residential holidays again as well. So we did have planned a series of 5-day residential training courses where you would come, stay in the cottages and do all sorts of fun stuff, a bit like me and my dog type things, as well as sort of other focused sort of 5-day intensive classes. And then say, hopefully we will get back to the weekly sort of classes and one-to-ones that we have missed doing over the last 18 months as well.
And so if people want to find you, how do they do that?
So developingdogs.co.uk or developingdogsholidays.co.uk. They're both on Facebook as well, Developing Dogs, Developing Dogs Holidays. So you'll see a selection of the things that we do via there. And the websites have a mailing list. So if you want to sign up to hear what we're up to, then just sign up to the mailing list and you'll be the first to know about what's going on here.
Thank you so much, Sian, for your time. I think, Teddy, would you like to say goodbye? You sit up. Oh, good boy. Can you say bye-bye?
Oh.
Look at the camera first. Can we look at the camera? Let's just see if we can get the camera facing you properly. Okay, now say bye-bye. You say bye-bye? Well, almost.
Very cute. Very cute. Woody's come to say goodbye too.
Oh, Woody.
Woody's come to tell me that it's time. Look at that stare. Is it time for dinner? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
We timed the end of our getting to Woody.
Indeed. Lovely to chat to you.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who are watching today, make sure you remember to subscribe, like, and share. Tell the world, because we have some more wonderful guests coming up. Thank you very much and see you next time. Goodbye.